Talk about our last.
All you, Dino.
We're on, eh?
Back. Part 7. It's the final episode. So the no more season cliffhangers. This is it. And obviously, whenever something amazing ends, something amazing also starts. So look forward to future collaborations with Dean. So number one, Dean, I just want to say how blessed and how grateful I am to have you in my sphere. I consider you a friend. You've almost become like my spiritual like guru and advisor, because a lot of the pieces that you've talked to us over the last over the last month and a half, I've put a lot of those in place, like the relationship test, and looking at who people whom I mentor and people who I look to towards mentorship. And I consider you one of those people, man. I value your advice. I value what you bring each and every week to these sessions. So I mean, from all of us at Sims Coaching, from me personally, Dean, thank you so much. This has been so much more than I anticipated. I knew there was gonna be something great, but I think that there's been some amazing pieces that we can all take away from each one of these sessions. And again, we're just so grateful to have you in here and work in collaboration with us. So without further ado, my good friend and yours, Dean Philpott.
Wow, Joel, thanks again, everyone, for having me. I mean, it's hard for me not to jump in sometimes to just the real estate portion of things. I mean, my life has been based around real estate for the last 22 years. And that's, and sometimes I just want to get on. I'm like, oh my God, we haven't talked about how to do something like this. And so I find this as well, Oh, I just heard some music in my headphones. Wow, that's in my head, I suppose. But so I find this a bit of a challenge not to go back and talk about all the to-dos about real estate. And so that's the part where I have to continually reel myself in, because I believe that my particular purpose on the planet, to be in service to people, is to, again, go back and learn, that other side that wasn't so pleasant. I went through some shit in my career as well. I come out the other side, and the only thing that got me through was seeing a bigger picture, not just about doing sales. And the whole purpose, this whole thing started, this other side of the coin, just so everybody knows, was to introduce the concept to people that there needs to be balance, you guys, in our lives as we're about to do this real estate. And again, Joe helped me understand that most of the people that are on the call today are in our real estate industry, correct?
Got it.
Yeah, right. And so again, I got tied up so much in my past, in my 30s, and my ego was so being enlarged, and I was allowing it to do that. And so when I got not certainly control of my ego, because that's something I think is always going to be for the rest of my life, trying to keep it in check. But when I started seeing how I was behaving and where I was getting after all this stuff, it's like, oh my God, I got to do something a little different. This is not working for me. I mean, slamming deals together was one thing, and we're all going to do that, but that's not my job today, is talk about how many deals we're going to get. My job today and my purpose for this whole creating this series was to help people who are slamming deals and trying to get there not to forget about the really important things of life. And I think that we got to tap into that spiritual side from a different aspect, from a different perspective. And that's why I'm brought in here. And again, I don't know if we went really deep on the ego. The ego states, I am what I have. So that just means that, if we're, if we identify ourselves with what size of the house that we live in, or we identify ourselves with what we're driving, and we say, look at me, guess what? That's false sense of self. So if this is who you are and you're driving for that reason, now there's nothing wrong with having a nice car. That's not the point. But if you identify yourself with that vehicle, well, then we have some issues going on there, or you do. You definitely have some issues. So, and again, I was part of that. I can only speak to this because I was, and I watched myself. I remember watching myself get in a vehicle once, and I pulled up as I'm doing the test drive, you guys. This is so weird. And I wasn't planning on talking about this today, but it's here. And I believe this is our last session together. And I really want to make sure that we want to dial in why we started this thing on the other side of the coin. But I pulled into a Tim Hortons, and I got out of my car. And as I shut the door, I looked around to see if there's anybody watching me get out of the car. I'm like, are you kidding me? When I look back that now, this is the perfect example of ego. Ego states that I am what I have. I am what other people think of me. Now that's big in our business, you guys. I am what other people think of me. Yes, I'm a number one agent. Is that why you're doing this? Just so you can have that title? It's one thing to know that you want to do your best, and we're going to talk about the 4 agreements today. And one of those is always do your best. But are you identifying the soul, your soul, with who, by what you do? So I am what other people think of me. I am what I do. I am what I have, and I am what I do. And most egregiously, I'm alone. I don't need God. I mean, now that could be, whatever that ultimate universe is, right? And so that's false sense of self. So if you were to strip those things away, if you took away your job, you took away your title, you took away your home, which can happen in many cases, what would you be, or who would you describe yourself as? Would you forget to say what a beautiful, loving person you are? Or, so be careful as we continue after this series is long gone. And when little things that you see now coming up in your future, they trigger some of the things, that I've talked about over the last, couple of months, as they trigger this, I want you to think about that. Am I operating today from my heart center, or am I operating from my sense of ego? When you're looking at a picture and somebody takes a picture and they show you, it's like you say, oh, let me see the picture. If the first thing that you go to in that picture is look for yourself and see how you looked, be careful, you're operating from ego. You should be, not should be, I should be careful of my own language. I mean, what you want to pay attention to is, the other people in your life. It's like, hey, did everybody have a smile on? Were we all looking at the camera? Versus going, oh, look, I didn't like the way my hair was. Take that picture again. And this is all normal stuff. This doesn't mean, that we're horrible people because we're operating from our ego. But my job has now turned into not helping you sell more deals. It's about helping you become more balanced in your life, so you can take that home and live a better life with your family. Because at the most important times in your life, what's going to be the most important? I guarantee you, will say, oh, it's my family. Well, if you look back, and is that what your kids would say, how you're operating right now? When we all say, hey, that's the most important thing in my life. Well, what would your kids say today if you were to, and if somebody walked up to your children or your spouse and said, hey, what's the most important thing in Joe's life? Well, that's pretty simple. That's his job. That's all he does. Oh, no. Or is it, well, of course, it's me, it's his wife, it's his family. So, again, so just remember those things. If I had to say one of those things, how we talked about writing things down and taking notes, understand what ego is. I am what I have. I am what other people think of me. And most egregiously, I'm separate from God, which you're not. We're all one. Remember we talked about the slice of pie? We're all one, you guys. Just because that slice of pie got taken out of the pie doesn't mean that it's not pie. We had a little session on that. Now, don't forget some of his cats, somebody just said. Joe likes his cats. So as we started, guys, the reason we planned this whole thing is so we can understand ourselves a little better. And so when we're thinking about our heart center, let's not make those decisions from our quick to snap brain and our mind, and like just shoot stuff. Or ask yourself the question, am I operating right now from ego, or am I operating from heart center? So that's some of the things that I want you to ask as you're going forward. And that's why we started this whole thing. And so of course, part of that whole process, right, for me to deliver this kind of information was to introduce to you what I feel is some of the higher side of our personality. You don't need to know about real estate from me. I mean, that's not we have a real estate company, and that's great. It works. And we're getting advice from Jason on that, and from Joe, and from everybody else. We want your advice on how to sell more homes these days. But I know that I've come through my path along. I thought I was only 53, but I'm 54. So I got 54 circles right around the planet. And in those 54 years, in those cycles, what I've come to learn in the last few is that it's not what I thought it was at the beginning. So there's also a time in one's life. It's not gender specific, it's not time specific, but there's a time in one's life when you enter into the afternoon of your life. And everything that was important in the morning of your life is no longer important. And I hit that at 42. And that's when someone says, well, I became aware. Now, I'm not putting myself on no pedestal here, but I just know that I don't think the same as when I became aware as when I did before I became aware. And awareness is just a time, again, when things, they don't look the same. And when I started studying the ego, that's when I started studying it, is when I knew I hit the afternoon of my life. And I woke up one morning and everything that was important to me was no longer important. Again, so the example would be, I woke up in my beautiful 4,000 square foot home. I had 5 bays of garage with every toy known to mankind, and it didn't mean shit. And I'm like, oh my God, I must be going, I'm having a bad day, because all this stuff that I've worked for so far, I woke up in my house and my wife had left me and we had split up, and my kids now had gone out and they were just shipped out while I'm trying to get my shit together. And I woke up and went, oh my God, none of this is important anymore. So I had to reevaluate. And so that's why I had to get to know, well, why would I have worked so hard all these years? And I knew my family was number one, but I wake up and they're actually gone. And yet I'm surrounded by all this stuff. I am what I have. You understand where I'm coming from now? You see that? I am what I have. So I wasn't my house that day, I'll tell you. I was something that I didn't like. And I looked in the mirror and thought, oh my God, I better start discovering. That was round number 2. So they say, well, maybe it's just because we're a man or I'm from Newfoundland. I don't know. But I'd done this twice before I even started to take a look at it. So, I mean, it took me twice round the bend to look at this and go, something's wrong. So for me to start again right after that and go into my work and start selling houses again and go after it all again without understanding what this was about, this would be me ignoring my duty to myself and my family. So that's why I started taking a look at ego. So I woke up and it was all gone. So everything that was important in my life was no longer important. I went to a psychologist. I said, man, I think I'm going nuts. And he laughed. He goes, oh, how old are you? He says, what's going on for you? I said, well, everything, nothing matters anymore. And he goes, oh no, he says, you're not going nuts. He says, you're entering into the afternoon of your life. And he says, this is normal for some people. Some people would call that like a midlife crisis or whatever. Instead of going out and buying the Corvette, I mean, guess what? I started taking a look at myself. So it was after that point, everyone on this call right now, that I started taking a better look or a deeper look at the other side. And this is why this all starts coming. This is why I call it the other side of the coin. It's the afternoon of your life. And everything, now I look at things differently. What's more important, right? Is it people and relationships, or is it cars and what you want people to think because you're driving? And again, nothing wrong with having a really nice house. There's nothing wrong with wanting lots of money because you can help more people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you start understanding what's the purpose. When you get out of your car these days and you start looking around and seeing if there's anybody watching you, you might want to take a look inside a little deeper, do a little bit of a checkup from the neck up is what they call it, right? And so the reason why we wanted to introduce all this higher side of our personality, these intellectual faculties, is because this will help us move forward in our future and have this awareness that we didn't otherwise have. Now, if I didn't go through all that shit in my 30s and lost everything twice and divorced and unhappy, sick and broke, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to sit here and speak with this authority. And that's the only reason I can. So if I had to look back in my life now with that intellectual faculty of perception, that's why God looked down at me and says, okay, this guy, you know what? I think I'm going to choose this guy and I'm going to fuck it all up. I'm going to make him lose his family. I'm going to give him $1 million and then I'm going to take it away from him. And then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. And he says, because at the end, this guy will be the guy to be able to put it all together and come out and help a bunch of people, so they don't have to make the same mistakes and they can operate from a different side of the personalities. So that's why I look at these days. And that's how it's important for me to share, that level of why we need to do this now and be able to operate from a higher side of ourselves and move forward. So again, we don't have to wake up and have empty houses. You can still keep your beautiful car out in the driveway. You can have all the cats you want, right? We can do all this. So so that's why we introduced, this little what we called the stick man. And of course, it's just a representation of our mind, because we get to the only way we're going to do all these or make these changes in our life or maintain a structure that's going to be balanced is by having a picture to work with, and that's a picture of our mind, because all this that we're going to accomplish is through our mind, and that's why we started this series again. And so up until now, we've been conditioned to believe that everything was from our sensory factor. We all know that we're wired little antennae and we operate just like robots. But now we have a new side of our personalities called our intellectual side, our intellectual faculties. And we've talked about them. There's our perception and our will and our imagination. My God, isn't that a beautiful one, right? Our memory and our intuition. And today we're back to talking about our reasoning factor. And so remember, it's only by we can engage these intellectual faculties, through our thoughts. And so instead of just reacting to things now, we can stop and take 10 minutes and go, hey, what happens if I tie in the higher side of myself right now? And I can change out the outcome, and we can change up and continue getting good results versus just reacting. So that's why we went through all these things. And so today's last factor, like our last mental muscle that we've talked about, is our reasoning factor. And that's the only factor, that's the only one in us that separates us from a horse or a pig. Everything else, a horse or pig, has the same intellectual faculties except for this. And our reasoning factor is our ability to think. And so thinking today is what it's all about, right? So excuse me, I need to take a glass of water. I'm getting a little dry here now. So it's the part of our personality that allows us to take a thought, and if we're not happy with that thought, we can change it up. And so that's where this is exactly just that. We get the ability in our conscious mind now to be able to look at an idea, for our family, or, again, talking about the ego thing, we can accept this, reject it, or neglect it. But either way, we have that, the ability to make that decision and to choose your thoughts is done through our reasoning factor. And so we get to improve upon an idea. So we get an idea and we think it's right because we ask ourselves the proper question. Will this idea improve the quality of my life, right? And for the betterment of my family and my business. And now if you have that idea and it's not just the perfect idea just yet, again, through our reasoning factor, understand that, hey, I can go back and I can rework this idea till I can find how it works. And that's called thinking. Now, how many people, just listen to some of the conversations that you go around you as you walk through your life this week coming up. Just listen to other people chat, and you tell me about how many people are truly thinking. Now, I think it was Earl Nightingale who said, if most people said what they were thinking, they'd be speechless. Right? Think about that. Now, Joel, I got him laughing. That's good. If most people said what they, said what they were thinking, they'd be speechless. And then another guy said, he was a speaker who's long gone out of Kentucky. He says, 2% of the world thinks. There's only 2% of the world that actually thinks. 3% of the world think they think. 95% of the people on the planet would rather die than actual think. Think that out for a second. So when you go out next week, understand what it is that you're listening to. Just listen to people for a second before you just spit out anything, and start to understand that a lot of people aren't really thinking. So right now, we have this beautiful advantage to go out and live our lives, with the ability to think. And now, but what's the key is we actually have a recipe, because we can understand that if you're thinking something that's not working for you, you have the ability now in our intellectual side to change it up through our perception faculty. And again, if you weren't aware of this, you just go on, you do things sometimes unconsciously. And so you can end up either in a good place or a bad place. But right now, we're all set up to operate our lives as a conscious competent, because now we have these things that we can, work with. And so that's basically it when it comes to the reasoning factor. It's about being aware that we have the ability to think. So let's not move forward and take the average answer. Let's sit back and go, my God, I have the ability to create thoughts. And again, so you create thoughts through this very intellectual faculty of reason. That's how we create. And that's the only part of our, that's a part of our non-physical energy that we get to use. You can't talk, you can't see reasoning, but you can create it in your non-physical energetic mind. So this is where this is the opportunity. So when you're listening to other people, again, I go back to that. Just listen to some of the conversations around you, and you tell yourself, oh my God, wow, are these people thinking or not? And so we want to surround ourselves with people that are thinking, and that's part of this whole process as well. You'll understand that this is about small talk. It's not going to serve us. Make sure we're thinking. Are you creating? And when there's an idea that comes at you and you feel that, hey, there's something there, but it might not fit your criteria right now. Well, this is where You can look at any idea and go, hey, listen, if I choose to think about this, I can probably turn this into something. And so you do that with your reasoning factor. Don't just think that something's coming at you, and because it doesn't fit at the current moment, your current state not going to work. You have this ability to look at something and turn it into whatever it is that you want, and that's that reasoning factor. So that's our intellectual faculties: perception, will, imagination, memory, intuition, and reasoning. That's it. I think what's that? That's 6. And that's the 6 factors that has the ability now blended with your thought process versus your reactive side of your see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. This is the recipe we have right there, Joel. And as we're talking about now, what I wanted to do next was I want to talk about some of the things now to move forward. Like, I feel like there's a whole bunch of little nuggets there to be able to put out to send everybody off with. You have that on that intellectual side. So your spiritual side now, you can tap into it and understand that we all have it. And so I read a book a long time ago. It was called The 4 Agreements. Has anybody read that book here? The 4 Agreements. And I mean, it goes kind of deep, but I'll just list them all off because it just makes a lot of sense. Not yet, Jason. So yeah, this is another one, and it's a good one. And these are simple things, but when we hear them, it's almost like it's too simple. It's like we know that, but yet, so one of them is be impeccable with your word. Now, that would go to reason that this seems to be normal for people, but when we're about to go out now in this new year, this is January 17th or 18th. We're 2.5 weeks into our first year. I want us to put these things at the front of our mind. Be impeccable with your word. If you're going to say something, do it. It's better, they have that saying about over delivering and under
promise, over deliver.
Yeah, under promise and over deliver. So be impeccable with our word, no matter what, because that's part of the that's part of how people are going to view us, and this power, how we're going to do business and how we want to put this out there to the universe. So that's huge for me. And it could be the littlest things, right? Listen, if you say you're going to pop by with that, can of beans to that friend, make sure you go to the store and you do it. Oh, it wasn't that, but he's just my friend. Where else in your life will that be showing up if you're able to sacrifice some of those little things? So understand that as well, and I want us to talk about that with our own selves. If you put in your calendar something for you to do that's going to serve your life better. I'm going to go for that nature walk and put my hands in the dirt today because that's what I'm going to do. Now, if you are that kind of person where all of a sudden someone calls and says, well, listen, I can only see that property from 1 to 2, but that's when you got it scheduled in for you. And you just put it off to the side and you don't put your hands in the dirt that day and feel Mother Nature, because that's what we need to be doing. Where else are you sacrificing parts of you? Just too many times us as realtors, now I'm coming from a realtor hat now, that we devalue our own time. And we go, oh, no. Hey, listen, no, if he wants to show the property, I'm going to go show it, baby, right now. Well, if you're going to do that, make sure you shift it and put it in a different time slot. We're talking about time blocking almost. But be careful not to keep switching those things and just not going back to it. I'm not going to work out today because I have to do this. But if you're going to say you're going to work out to yourself, and so when I'm saying be impeccable to your word, I'm not talking about just to everybody that's in your world that you're going to do something. Be impeccable to your word, to yourself as well. That's a big one. And I found out that the hard way. And I kept, going to go to the gym. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, something else came up. And then I started using it as a crutch. I would try and fill it up with somebody else's stuff so I wouldn't have to go. But then where else in your life is that showing up? So be impeccable to your word. And that's part of those 4 agreements. The second one was don't take anything personally. Now, that's a big one. And that's hard not to do, especially when we're in such a business of where our heart is on our sleeves and we're in service to people so much. And all of a sudden they come back to us and say what we didn't do to please them. Now, that's a tough one. So that's why I asked to pick up this book. I asked you kindly this is a book to read. It's a really easy read, but it really breaks it down into a manner where, when other people are saying things to you, it's usually not about you, it's about them. There's a big reflection theory. Sometimes when people are unleashing on you, it has nothing to do with you. They're angry inside about something else, but you're the one who's getting it. So then for you to take that on and walk through the rest of your day and not engage some of your intellectual faculties that we've talked about already, this really goes hand in hand. That would be doing yourself and everybody around you a disservice. So understanding when something's coming at you that is not pleasing to what you feel, it's hard, but it's true. Don't take things personally. We're all on different pages. We all have different journeys that we're on right now. More than ever, it's about this. We're in a pandemic right now. More than ever, this really stands true. Don't take things personally. It's hard, but get into the habit of saying, hey, am I taking this personally? And you'll know right away, because we've talked about paying attention to how it is that we feel, right? If something good is coming at you, how do you feel, right? If something's coming at you and all of a sudden things change down here, well, then maybe it's time to go back upstairs here and engage those intellectual faculties and get a different perception on it. Because again, if we're taking things personally, it's going to be some hard for us to walk forward. And then that's when we can switch it around and we can look at it and go, I need to help that person because things aren't so well. So don't take things personally. Be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. Now, we all know that one, assumptions make an ass out of me and make an, out of you and all that stuff. So, but let's bring that to the table here and slow it down for a second. How many times are you going throughout your day and making assumptions on how people are either feeling, what they should be doing, versus asking questions? So the opposite of assuming is making sure we ask the right questions. Now, as we're heading back into this year, make it a year where we ask more questions. Like questions, it eliminates assumptions. And good questions are not thought about, okay? Good questions come from your heart. And because the second that you're there talking to your client, and you're thinking about what question to ask, well, you're no longer focused on your client. Remember what we talked about last week? Going right in without all outside distractions and listening. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You want to listen with your heart center. So don't worry about the question. So this is the part about trusting yourself. Now here is where intuition kicks in again. So I love how we can start grabbing all these today, even in one little session here. So intuitively, if you're going to listen to your clients or your family or your son when he's telling you something, you won't have to worry about what question, because you know what? The universe will always know. You have to trust your intuition. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust your heart center, and you'll always have the right question. Jason, as a coach, you'll know this. We don't sit there and figure out what's the right questions at certain times. You have to trust yourself when you're with your clients, with your partner, with anything. This is the year of questions. Don't make assumptions. Questions. Ask the right questions. Let them come from your heart, because you're listening with your heart. You hear with your ears. You listen with your heart. And so that's what we really want to move forward with when we're not knowing what some of these answers are, when people are and we're assuming it's the wrong answer. So I want you to reach in real close and listen hard, and those questions will appear. And I've had to learn that as a coach. And that's a really hard thing sometimes. But if you're not focused on anything else other than focused on the person that's in front of you and not yourself, those questions will appear. And remember, when you're with your clients, they need to be talking 75% of the time. And when you're doing all the talking and you're doing a showing, and you walk out of there and go, hey, what did I learn? I don't remember. What that means, you were talking too much. You wanted to hear your own voice. And there's a lot about ego and insecurity that comes with that. Look at me, I am what I do. Look at me, I'm a big realtor and I know it all. Be careful that we don't go there. Now that's for everybody else that's not aware of all these intellectual faculties we have and are not operating from their heart center. We can still do a lot of business, everyone, and operate from our heart center. We just have to listen, and to ourselves as well. Remember, we have those answers. So the last one is always do your best. Seems to be like, well, of course it's always do your best. When you sit back and when we're about to do something, ask yourself, now, did I do this to my best? This is about self-reflection now. This is part of those 4 agreements. That became a bestseller for a reason. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personal. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Always know, did I do my best? Now, when you're at a listing agreement, so we'll tie it back into real estate. When you're at a listing agreement and you walk out, you should always be able to know that, hey, I did my best. And what does that mean? So that now you want to back that up. That means you got up this morning and you studied the market in their area. You went in, you did all the research. You didn't go in there and just fly by the seat of your pants. Did I do my best? What does best mean for you? So, and that can go right back to your relationships, with your business partner, with your children. Did I do my best today when I was out with my kids? Was I at my best? Was I focused? Was I on my phone? And guys, I speak with this with authority as well, because I was the guy that was at all the baseball games, never missed a one. Did I really see Reed when he scored his soccer goal? No, I was writing a deal, most likely. And I'll be the first one to admit it. And that's why I want to bring it up to you. And don't think for a second your kids don't notice that. No, be there, be present, being present. We're human beings. We've talked about that before. Be present. These are the little tips that I want to give as we talk about these 4 agreements. And being present with you and your relationships is listening. You don't need to write it all down sometimes when you're really present. Now, there's sometimes, yes, you know what, you guys, you got to have the phone on for certain reasons. I get that. But at the end of the day, when you go to bed and you say, no, I spent the last 2.5 hours with my kids, was I really present? I went for a walk today with someone. What did they say? Ask yourself that question. You want to test yourself? Remember about the last time you had a personal meeting with someone and they were just, just hanging out with them. Go home and ask yourself, hey, what did they say today? Because people can be yakking all day long with you on your walk around Westwood Lake. And you can walk around and get in your car, but your mind was somewhere else. And it's noticeable. I've had friends who have come back to me and says, Dean, I want to tell you thank you for your being really present. Because, man, you're usually not. I'm always, in that different zone. And if we want to build healthy relationships and be able to give back and not be about us, we have to listen and we have to be present. And that's what goes a long way. And think for a second about your children. They know when you're present, when you're not. Be present. When you throw that Frisbee, don't be thinking about the deal. Just for a second. And this is going to take a lot of time. This is not going to happen overnight. And remember, we have this ability because we can do it with the power of what? Our will, right? The ability to focus. We have that ability. And think about that next time you're with someone or leave your phone at home. It's such a big distraction. We are realtors, we're on the go. But again, if we're going to have those quality relationships, and be able to dial this in, we can tune into the ability of will, and we can focus and have better relationships and be present. You're going to live a healthier life when we are present because you've done your best. And that's part of that 4 agreements. So that's that. I have some platinum insights here for you. I call them platinum insights. They come into my 20 minutes to platinum. Joel, when he first introduced, he says, yeah, and Dean from the 10 minutes to platinum. And Joel, it was 20, just so you know, 20 minutes to platinum. And my goal, and why I called it 20 minutes to platinum, because with that program that we designed, it was designed around 20 minutes a day. You can sit down and focus on something for 20 minutes a day and bring it forward and improve the quality of your life. Yes, you can, and your business. It only takes 20 minutes a day to do certain things, right? So one of the things, and again, this is I've proven these things, and is to get up in the morning and before your feet hits the ground, say thank you, thank you, thank you. Now start your day before your little feet hit the ground. Make that a habit. Start our day in gratitude, because you'll talk, when we start reading about all this beautiful information that we've heard about through all these authors, they've come and gone. Everybody that's, really winning in life, you'll ask them one of their things, and like, man, well, you're killing it. You're crushing it with your day. You're doing this, you're doing that. They'll always come back and say, man, my ability to be in gratitude is always very important to me. So if you make that a habit, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now let your feet hit the floor. And if your feet start hitting the floor and you're not saying that, well, good. I hope now that just starts crossing your mind. This has been a thing for me for the last few years. Do I say hit it every day? Most days I do. Hey, there's no such thing as perfect. And that's a false sense of self as well. Impressions of increase. We've talked about it. These are very important little insights. Remember, as we're doing and living our 4 agreements, when we meet with someone and we go to leave them, I want us to leave an impression of increase. What value did I bring to these people today? Whether it be opening up a door, or did I give them some advice that they were asking for, or did I simply just listen because they needed someone to talk to? Impressions of increase is so important to us. I mean, for us to live a balanced life. It is what it is. Harvest the good and build a bridge and get over it. There's that one too. And this is a big one, because if there's anybody out there that will share the same beat me up theory as me, I'm really hard on myself. I still am. And it's just something I got to work through. And of course, something doesn't go as we planned, I have a tendency of dragging myself down. And we talked about that. So our intellectual faculty of memory, if we can engage that when we're having one of those days and think about the good times, well, whatever just happened in your day to day that's going to really not ruin it, you just say, hey, listen, you know what? It is what it is. Let's just harvest the good and move on. My sister used to say, build the bridge, brother, and just get over it, right? And so one of those things, so when we hear about these little cliches, these are little things that we need to be able to sit back when we have these objections that's going on in life. And so, and be able to tell ourselves, because if we're going to operate from our higher self, these are all, we need a whole bunch of tools in place, because just because you're operating from your higher self, don't think that shit's not going to go south for you. Guess what? I mean, hey, I hope that nobody goes home today and they have divorce papers served on them, but it's possible. Don't ever take that for granted. You could go home and your business partner left you, right? I mean, it's still life. My point is, we have a bunch of tools right now that we can operate and not lose momentum about what it is that we're doing and stay in the vibration that we can. If we, life is still life. We just have tools that are going to ensure that we're able to stay on that vibration that we need to be on, so we can be healthy for our family, relationship, our kids. Happiness is wanting what you already have. Whew, that's a big one. Happiness is wanting what you already have. Now, of course, I've struggled with this happiness factor many times in my life, and I'm still, hey, I'm not going to say it's always a perfect day. I'll tell you that, not in my head. It can be a dangerous place to be sometimes inside this head of mine. But when you wake up and you see what you already have, this is where we really want to be given thanks and be happy for what we already have. There's nothing wrong with reaching for the stars. Don't sacrifice what you know and life and other people to get where it is you think you might want to go, thinking that, oh, that's a happier place. That's not what happier is. Now, you probably already know this, but these are some of these platinum insights that I wanted to share. These took a big effect on me when I started understanding, oh my God, it's not about that. It's not, happiness is not having the bigger boat. No, it's definitely not. It's going to be more comfortable. I mean, that's like money. Money is great. I mean, it's, it makes you more comfortable when you can help more people. It's about how you view it. And it's about your relationship with money. Money is for comfort and to help others. And there's nothing wrong with having really comfortable stuff. And there's nothing wrong with helping a lot of people. So understand that. And there's no growth in your comfort zone. We've all heard that before. So when we're about to set out on an idea and you're setting your goals, if you're actually not kind of shook up inside your core about how you're going to accomplish this, I don't believe it's the right goal. There's no, there's no need to, there should be no room on the edge of your seat. If you're not sitting at the edge, you're not living. There's no growth in your comfort zone. What are you these days? Are you comfortable, or are you getting up going, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm about to pull off here today? When you set that goal for yourself, whatever that is, whether it be your relationship goals, your family, but there's got to be a tingle inside, there's got to be a fire inside your belly. There's a quote here somewhere, something that I'm gonna go find it here for you in a second. What use is to have a belly if there's no fire inside of it? And of course, then you look at this too as like, well, hey, too goal oriented is going to set you off on a different path. Well, again, this is up to you to get that under control about what excites you. And the goal is not the thing itself. The purpose of a goal, you guys, it gives meaning to your life. Nothing wrong with having big goals. It gives meaning to your life, and it makes you become something that you're already not. You have to get outside that comfort zone. And that's where the growth takes place. The purpose of a goal is to become something that you're already not. And you got to turn into a different human being to get there. And that's raising that level of awareness. So I love that. It ties right back into Joe's favorite topic, right? So having a mentor and a place and an affirmation and a book, I'm so happy and grateful now that I am in an easy, relaxed manner in a healthy and positive way. Now doing this, right? And right at the end, you guys, you want to put that down there and go, dear God, make me an instrument of thy love and abundance and your peace. Like, let's dial it all in. Like if we're going to do this, let's do it big and do it right. One of the things that I have noticed, and sometimes I'm a little ignorant about it. It depends if you're my friend or not. I'll hear people talk about things, and they'll talk about all the things that they don't want. Well, I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to be getting a car that's got this, and I don't want to have a business that's going to operate like this, and I don't want agent stuff like that. We have to switch up our language. Guess what? The universe speaks that language. Understand that. Everything you don't want, it'll bring you. Everything you put focus on is going to come to you. Let's talk about what we want, not about what we don't want. Now, our little group right here, I'm hard on them when it comes to that. And I stop them right in the middle of our meetings on Tuesday and go, what do we want? Let's talk about what we want. How does it feel when you change up that language that we speak about from what we don't want to what we want? What I don't want is to get on one of these webinars and not know what I'm going to say. What I want is that when I get on one of these webinars, the universe, I just become a vessel and I just start spitting stuff out. And there's a value there. So that's how you can switch that up right away. What kind of business do you want versus what we don't want? What kind of a human being do you want to be versus why? I don't want to be one of those guys that's like this. I don't want. It's a huge thing, Joe. It's huge. And it's very focused. What you focus on expands, Justina is right. You're so right. So you're going to bring in exactly what you don't want. So, and this is not, not slamming people for thinking this way. This is human nature. We're out there, we're surrounded by people that are not thinking, remember? There's only 2% of the people that think. Understand that. 3% of the people think they think, and 95% of the people would rather die than think. This whole series is based around helping us understand how to think. That's what this is all about. This has been a think tank. Understanding we know how to think now. We have things that we could pull out from our toolbox that we didn't have before, so we can become different thinkers. So guys and gals, when you walk away from this today and you're driving home or you're just having those quiet thoughts tomorrow morning, you've been given some information that can help the quality now of your thought process. You can think yourselves right into these results, thinking into results. Man. So, and I only say this because this is the way it came on to me. When I started studying this information, and it stayed, like I was drinking this from a fire hose for, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years. And then I got saturated and I had to sit back and go, man, I got to put this in my language. And so I started getting it from all sources. And like the ego came from one source, the impression of increase came from somebody else, and the intellectual faculties came from, the Bob Proctor Foundation. And I love Bob, and he was helping me through this. I mean, all this information came at me. So now it's about, how do we put it out there? And so just be you and be who you are to what you do. And you'll always have whatever it is that you want. Now, how is that for a little bit of a goodbye? Be who you are, be you. And I mean, Joe always says this at the beginning, be you. Dean, just, be you. Be who you are to what you do, and you'll always have whatever you want. And so I'll tie into this, like, again, being who we are. Sometimes people will go out and they'll start this career, and because they see other people that have been in this career, they'll want to emulate that. And sometimes they'll sacrifice who they are, and they'll go out and they'll try and be someone that they're not, to pull off and get the same results. And what happens is it totally tanks. And this happened in Whitehorse when I started doing my radio ads. And I was putting on the bald guy, and I had radio ads going on the radio all the time. My daughter was on. And so another guy in the same brokerage says, oh my God, well, if Dean can do that, so can I. So he got on and he started emulating the same thing. And there's nothing wrong with trying to tie into something, but he wasn't being who he was. And his business completely went upside down. And what happened then? People started calling me going, I was going to call this dude, man, until he got on the radio. And he says, if he's trying to be you, oh my God, this is great. I'll call you. I'll call the real guy. And so this became really funny. So I started noticing this behavior. And so be careful. I mean, again, be careful. Be who you are. God only made one of you. And now that you've been given this toolbox of how to, control how it is that you feel, my God, there's no reason why you got to sacrifice who you are. There's only one of you. And I believe that every one of us on this planet is perfect. You are built in the image of perfection. Now sometimes we gotta dial it in, and it might not be perfect for everybody around you, but I'm going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with anything about you. You're perfect. We have some tools that I work with, and be who you are to what you do, and you will always have whatever it is you want. And when my daughter first started in real estate, so Kate came in, of course, she was looking at all the other, the young real estate agents. So she went out and bought the certain shoes, the certain this and the certain that. And she's like, well, I don't even feel right. Like this is really, and of course it doesn't feel right, because it's not you. So whatever you is, go dial that one in. And that's how you're going to get the energy, because look how much energy you have to expand not to be you. You got to go out and try and be something else. That takes a lot of energy. Be you. It takes no energy to be you. So then just be yourself. And that's who you're going to attract. So don't think for a second, there's going to be everybody out there. We're all going to bring in our own category of clients and relationships. But it's going to be a big failure if you're somebody that you're not. Imagine getting somebody. I'm sure we all have our own examples about how we've been in touch with other salespeople, and you go, my God, they were so fake. Imagine if they were you, and then you get to maybe know them a little better, and it's like, oh, maybe he is pretty cool. Well, let's just be you right from square one, and just don't change that, because you're perfect, and I believe that. So be who you are to what you do. You'll always have whatever it is you want, and I think that's a great way to clue up today. I think everybody's perfect. I love you all. I don't even know you, but I love you. And this has been a real blast. This has been so good. And if there's any part of your life that will improve because of something I said, that's our purpose on the planet, is to do the thing that we love to do. I love this. Our purpose on the planet is also to be in service to people. That's no different from me and you. So like we're all the same here. Whatever that is that your purpose is to be in service to people, understand that, and to do what you love to do. And if you can't figure that out, just figure out what you hate to do. It's the polar opposite. If you hate something, look at the polar opposite, and that's what you love. So go at her. Look at your part of your business that way. It's like, well, I hate doing this part of this thing. Well, get somebody else to do that. You do what you're good at, your business will succeed. Don't try and be everything to everyone. Find the people that are going to do that. You just be you. Listen, if you guys had to send me paperwork this afternoon to fill out, you'd find out who I am. It would take a month of Sundays. And you'd say, man, Dean, how could, because it's not my thing. Now, I loved it. Now, you want to call me and start talking about boats and personal development? Try that one. Yeah, I love doing this. And that's where you'll engage me. So just do what it is you love to do, because that's your purpose. Yeah. So, Joel, thank you.
Hey, man, my pleasure. As always, there's so much value in there. I really don't think I stopped writing. Some of the things that I take away is, again, the purpose of money, right? And a huge part is, it's to help others. No growth in the comfort zone. Find out what excites you. And again, talk about what you do and don't want. Starting to verbalize, I think, is a big piece as well. Some sort of conversational pieces around reason that I've always sort of rung true to me is buying time in a conversation to allow yourself to think. I think is a major, major skill. And it's something that I was one of those people where I didn't think before I spoke. So I found sort of tips and tricks that I could implement in my day-to-day travels. And number one is, if you're ever, stuck in a conversation, just saying, let me ask you a question, and then pausing. You can sometimes buy yourself some time to trigger that reason button.
Sure.
And another one that I love is I love engaging in, whether it's a critical conversation with a team member or a client, asking a question. And if you need to allow people time to think, human nature, we ask a question, and then as soon as we hear that silence, we just start filling it with
right space. Yeah, we're afraid to have the space.
I know. So one trick that I picked up was, if I ask a critical question that I'm really interested and curious about the answer, I will actually start counting backwards from 100 by sevens in my mind until the other person speaks. And what that does is that consciously makes me focus on another activity rather than just filling a space with words. Yeah. So I found just a couple little tips and tricks to help people, again, in that conversational space, allow time to think and sort of trigger that reason. So just 2 tips I picked up along the way.
By 7, huh? That's like saying the alphabet backwards, right? Yeah,
Pretty
gotcha.
well. Pretty well, and then just seeing how low you can go. But, when you sort of hit like the first sort of 21 numbers backwards from 100, you can see people's wheels start turning because it
Yeah,
allows them time to actually
sure.
articulate and think. And it's the power of also knowing like where you lie in that disc profile.
Yeah,
Are you somebody who's be brief, be bright, be gone, give me an answer, and then I'm on to the next thing? Or are
yeah,
you somebody who sort of values that time to think, like that steadiness or that conscientiousness, that level of introversion where you need a moment to process? And sometimes to avoid those potential personality conflicts, allowing somebody else time to think.
yeah.
Man, if that's something I had to put in place 30 years ago, I probably would have saved myself a lot of trouble and a lot of conflict.
Right, and that's just it, right? 30 years ago, we didn't have that. You were
Mhm.
probably operating from ego, and you weren't even thinking that this was a thing, right? So therefore, this is the thing about being our age. I mean, my age. You're probably a little bit younger. I think a lot, but it's making me feel good. But yeah, I wanted to read you that quote before I forget. If you plan on being anything less than what I can remember it anyways. If you plan on being anything less than what you're capable of being, you'll probably be miserable all the days of your life. If you plan on being anything less than what you're capable, whew, boy, that's a tough one, right? You'll probably be miserable. So if we're looking at why we're, not again, being able to get ourselves in a position where we're being at our best, and whatever, and we know we're capable of this, man, there's something there. Because yeah, I mean, there's something behind that. That was one of those quotes that just really stuck with me. If you plan on being anything than what you're capable of being. Ooh,
I love it, man. And again, just fill your heart with love,
right,
compassion, be genuinely curious about other people's stories,
right, yeah,
and just kind of carrying that, right?
yeah. Well, listen, buddy, I'm sure we're going to connect again soon, and we're going to come up with something else. Heidi had asked earlier, what's the next week thing? Well, I think maybe next Monday you got a break. I know Jason's got some big stuff going on this week about the Go Giver coming up on
Yeah, we
Wednesday.
got Bob
And
Burns on Wednesday.
right. Oh my goodness. And I mean, I really want to put my thanks out to you guys about how much value that you've brought into my life and my team. I mean, the value is priceless. Honestly, it's beautiful. And so this collaboration is really good. And now it gives us time to reset the button, and Joe and I can go out and discover, again, what are the needs? What are the needs of the people? Let's go out and see if that fits in what we have in our repertoire of give back, right? So the Go Giver, I can't wait. So thanks for arranging all that.
Yeah, hey, our pleasure. That was something I mean, Go Giver's a massive, massive passion for Jason and I,
Yeah,
and we sort of built this company around that one law of value, which Dean, do you know what the law of value is?
go ahead.
Oh, always give more in value than you would ever dream of taking in payment, right? One
Sure.
of the laws of stratosphere, one of the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And that's something that we live. So we love putting out content that'll help people elevate themselves and also help them lift others up as well in their sphere.
Yeah,
So something that again we're very passionate about. So I look forward to the future collaborations that
sure.
we're put together. And I will say this, if anybody has any ideas or content that they want to see, or something that we've missed or you want revisited, please let me know. And we'll be happy to make sure we bring you that content. But Dean, this is a wrap, man. I kind of
It's a
feel like
wrap.
it's a piece of my life that is now closed off. We're not
Well, I'm a
hanging.
bit sad today. I'm feeling a little, it's like, oh my
I
God, well,
know.
what next? What about next Monday? I'm going to be crying next Monday at 1
I don't
o'clock.
know. I don't know. We'll
Right.
figure something out. We'll figure
Yeah,
something
for
out. So
sure.
thank you to everybody who came and hung out with us. These
Yeah.
sessions will be uploaded in the back side of the Kajabi course. So be able to
Yeah.
go in, check them out. We're also going to be putting some of these on our YouTube page and then our Facebook group as well. So stay tuned for
Yeah.
that. Dean, I love you, man. Thank you so much. And
Namaste, brother.
amazing week. Can't wait to hang out and whip some beers back on the back of that boat, man.
Right on. We can meditate and drink beer together.
Perfect. All right,
See you
guys. Thank you
guys.
so much.